Hey, and welcome to Crypto Conscious, episode 4. I'm Timothy, and I'm here with
MicroGuy. Glad you could tune in.
Today we want to talk about the basics of crypto because there's a lot of people out there asking the question, why do we need a new currency and why is this happening? And both of us are convinced that it's going to happen. It's going to replace paper currencies, and regardless of how much we know about it. So I think it's wise for us to educate ourselves about it and explore it. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm excited to do that because I've been in it for so long now that I see its potential. I see the superior characteristics, the qualities that it has, and yet I don't think that's reached the masses at this point. A lot of people, when I talk to people about cryptocurrencies, they're like, oh, my friend made $10,000 in 3 days or made $1 million, or they're looking at it more like a stock or some sort of an investment vehicle.
Right.
And what I would like to do, and I think which will ultimately happen, is people will be educated more on the fundamental characteristics, the ideology, the technology itself, rather than looking at it as just something that they can make a lot of money investing in.
I think most people understand generally that decentralization could be a good thing, and that's what it brings to the table, right? Like, for example, the Federal Reserve is centralized, and we could spend all day talking about the problems and issues with that type of system. So, but there are other characteristics of crypto that you wanted to talk about, that I want to talk about, that most people don't know about.
Right. And I would say this, that in my experience, very few people even understand or appreciate decentralization. And so that's one of the major, attributes of the system, is that it's not controlled by a single entity, a central authority. There's nobody that has the light switch and can just turn it off. It's really something that's been released into the wild. It has a life of its own, and it's unstoppable.
Right, and it's harder to manipulate. And one of the reasons why is because you can set a limited amount, and so that we know that in the year 2140 or whatever, the last Bitcoin will be mined because there's a finite supply.
Right.
And that's written into the code, and that can't be changed. We know the supply. Correct.
And from a monetary standpoint, in comparison to the Federal Reserve, which can artificially inflate the supply, what they do is they devalue the currency when they do that. And so they're really taking money literally out of our pockets and making our money worth less. And so through this quantitative easing, this inflationary practice, the money becomes less and less valuable over time, and that's something that we have corrected with cryptocurrencies. We don't have that issue with this central authority, this artificial inflation.
So the price of a crypto will only fluctuate based on the demand, basically?
Yes, so it'll always be supply and demand. And so with cryptocurrencies, we have a programmed supply or a programmed inflation rate. So when we launch a cryptocurrency, it has rules that the developers installed in the code. And in Bitcoin's case, we get a certain number of Bitcoins every 10 minutes. And when you do the math, all the coins created, you get 21 million total. And so when I decide to exchange my fiat for Bitcoin or to hold Bitcoin, what I'm doing is I'm speculating that this money has better characteristics than what I just exchanged it for on some level. And so you're putting value in that quality that it has.
Well, another one of the better characteristics that's a huge improvement on the systems we have now is that cryptocurrencies eliminate the need, or they eliminate for the most part, a middleman.
Right.
Like some kind of intermediary that'll charge you a fee or dip its hand into your transaction, like whether it's a bank or some kind of PayPal type of system, right?
Right. And so before 2009, it was impossible to have a cash transaction unless you were face-to-face. There would always be some some middleman, some intermediary in the transaction, regardless if it was the Postal Service, if you're mailing the person gold, or Western Union, if you're sending money overseas, or PayPal, any of this, Visa networks and all of these were intermediary. You know, these are middlemen that have power, really ultimate, absolute power over the transaction. They can allow it to occur. They can not allow it to occur. They can charge a fee of their choosing. And then if they want to, they can actually reverse the transaction. And so with Bitcoin transactions, it is impossible to reverse a transaction. They're irreversible, non-reversible. And that's another quality that I don't think people fully appreciate.
Well, I mean, I think most people would appreciate not having a middleman dip its hand into their transaction because, you know, basically with cryptocurrency, as long as you have an internet connection, you can buy or, you know, give and take, buy and sell or trade cryptocurrencies no matter where you are in the world, right? Okay, so, but not being able to cancel a transaction or reverse a transaction could have its downsides, right? Like if there's some kind of fraud or some kind of scam being pulled.
And so there are systems built. There are companies that offer these services, and eBay, for example, could easily install a safeguard for that. So we can introduce middlemen into the system and have those types of systems, but we have the added flexibility, something we don't have in any other form of money. Government issued currencies, for example, we have the ability to remove that middleman if we want to. And so just depending on the application and, you know, depending on the merchant or the whatever the situation is, now we can have either or. We have the, you know, which we never had before. We can take the middleman completely out. So
cryptos have these nice characteristics, but and it's not really, they're not really practical to own and use right now because of the fact that merchants don't accept them. You know, the general marketplace doesn't allow you to make purchases with them. And if that were to start happening, that would be the change that would all of a sudden massive amounts of people would start buying in, right? So what do you think is preventing that from happening?
Well, one thing is there were some mistakes made with Bitcoin, leaving the blocks at 1 megabyte, limiting the number of transactions that we can have, doing away with something that Bitcoin used to have, which is instant transactions, doing away with that, and then making it dependent on some second layer solution that doesn't exist. And so what happened was we had a roadblock, and that roadblock was when the fee market was developed, because now this tiny little block that can only hold so many transactions, because it was full, people began competing for that space, competing to have their transaction processed.
I understand.
And so they paid more and more until transactions were $5, $6, and you may go into Starbucks and pay $1 or $2 for a cup of coffee, and the fee could be $4. Nobody's going to do that. And so the merchants started pulling out Bitcoin out of their stores, and big organizations like Fiverr, and there are many others, it became impractical for them to accept Bitcoin, and they just shut it off.
It was beginning to trend, and then it just collapsed because the fees became so absurdly high.
Right.
Yeah.
And so one of the great solutions we have for that is Bitcoin Cash. So Bitcoin Cash fixed that problem. Bitcoin SV is another example. Goldcoin, the cryptocurrency that I'm involved in, we've all addressed that, and that's been fixed.
Yeah, these are much more efficient currencies. They can handle many more transactions per second, right?
They could, yes, they
and
can.
So that reduces the fee market on
it
transactions.
It eliminates it. And then Bitcoin Cash and Goldcoin, I haven't looked at the numbers on Bitcoin Cash right now, but a certain amount of each block is reserved for free transactions. So not only can we have low fees, we can have no fees, and only when there becomes a tremendous amount of traffic and competition for a block, would a fee become, anything other than really negligible? So we can have negligible fees or zero fees indefinitely.
Do you think that Bitcoin Cash and these other more efficient coins will start trending and we'll go back in the direction where we were meant to go?
That's right. I think what will happen will be the Model T, Ford automobile. I look at an analogy with Bitcoin being sort of the Model T. It opened the door to this type of transportation. It opened the door to this type of money, but it had some things that could be improved. And so I think actually it's been crippled. It's not only is it not the original Model T that we had, but it's a crippled Model T. And so Bitcoin Cash and Goldcoin and a lot of others are now competing to create a better car, a better version. And I think they have, for sure.
Okay, well, that sounds promising.
Yeah.
Would you recommend people buy in sooner than later?
I think cryptocurrencies for the average person should probably be maybe 10% of their overall portfolio, but I'm not a financial advisor, but I would say, I would want to have a little piece of it, and then to be diversified within that space. So like have 10% of your overall portfolio in crypto, but then have maybe 20 or 30 cryptos within that 10% slice.
Okay. Now, how does that work? Do they, well, people will need to know the difference between an exchange and a wallet, right?
Right. So you can go to an exchange like Coinbase or Gemini or Binance, and you can do your research. You can look at different cryptocurrencies. You can go to CoinMarketCap and look at, the order of ranking. And then you can go to these exchanges and you can actually buy and hold a variety of different cryptos.
So CoinMarketCap is not an exchange. It's just a list. Right. It's just a database.
It's just a tool
with all of the cryptocurrencies.
It's a research tool that ranks cryptocurrencies by market capitalization. It reports volume. It gives you the links to all the various websites, chats. It's sort of a jumping off page. If you want to start doing your homework, you use CoinMarketCap, and that's where you sort of dive in.
And then the three exchanges you mentioned are the biggest ones right now.
Some of the biggest ones by volume, yeah.
And but there are many others. And I used to use one called Cryptopia.
Yeah.
And it went down. It got hacked or supposedly got hacked, and it's no more. And a lot of people lost their investments over that.
Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering if that's something I need to worry about, where I need to split my 10% of my portfolio, like you said, into three different exchanges.
Well, another thing you can do is you could download a multi-coin wallet that gives you control over your private keys. You move the funds into some sort of a wallet that you can. The main thing is you want to control your private keys. And so what you would do is, after you purchase the coins, if it becomes a considerable amount, let's say you're getting into the hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, then you would want to definitely have those funds on an address that you control. But for most people, if you're only talking $2,000 or $3,000, $4,000, I think it's safe to keep the funds on those exchanges. Yeah.
Yeah. So when the funds are on the exchange, they control your wallet, basically.
Right. They control your wallet. They control your money.
Key. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like a bank. And when you download or install a wallet, then you're like your own bank, basically, right? Because you've got your digital currency in an app, or on your computer, and you've got a private key for it. And so long as you don't lose that private key, it's secure. Nothing can touch it.
The main problem that I've seen numerous times is when we do this, when we become our own bank, there's a transfer of responsibility. So now you have additional things to be thoughtful of, and that is, don't drop your phone in the lake if you don't have a backup. Don't go exchange your computer or sell your computer and, oh, I forgot I had a Bitcoin wallet on there. You know, there's a lot of things to consider in terms of safety and security. And for the average person, it would be safer to actually keep your coins, you know, on Coinbase or on Gemini, I think.
Right. Yeah.
As long as it's a legitimate, reputable exchange, until it becomes a lot of money, until it becomes a big chunk, then you might want to, you know, rethink it.
Well, I personally know a couple people who have lost their wallets, and so now $2,000 worth of Bitcoin is sitting somewhere and they can't access it.
Right. People have lost millions of dollars because they forgot their they had an encrypted wallet and they forgot their password. And there's been people that have lost millions because they forgot their password.
So that's a big downside, I would say.
Yeah.
But then they make these hardware wallets where it's like a thumb drive.
Yeah.
So that way it's not on your phone. It's not on your computer.
Yeah.
It's not dependent on the hard drive or the phone. Right?
Right.
So that seems a little more foolproof, if you ask me.
It is. It can be. You know, yeah, definitely if you get it onto a hardware wallet or a paper wallet. I prefer paper wallet because it's just a lot easier and it's the same purpose.
No, what do you mean by paper wallet?
Well, a hardware wallet, really essentially all it is a fancy paper wallet, really. So a paper wallet is just a little piece of paper. It looks like maybe like a stock certificate. And it has on this paper in a QR code and in alphanumeric, it has your public address and your private key. And that's all you really need. That's your chunk of real estate, you know, on Bitcoin is that address, that wallet, that one single thing, and you can put it into a lockbox. You can put it in your safety deposit box, and it's good as gold as long as nothing happens to that wallet, to that paper wallet.
Okay. Well, the other thing about a hardware wallet is that they can only hold certain coins, right? Like they have to be programmed to hold whatever coin you want to put on it, right? So if it's gold coin, a lot of hardware wallets aren't going to hold gold coin, are they? Yeah. Yeah. So it's not like there's some universal standard that every coin is the same in some way. They really are different even in how you can store them.
Well, yeah, that's correct. The address format is different.
So that's kind of a deterrent because now, you know, a lot of people getting into crypto, they're going to just be gravitating towards the top 10 coins and forget the rest, right? Basically, for other reasons too. Yeah,
that's right. That's what happens. You know, and that's why gold coin is ranked 1,200 because people are totally unaware of it. And it's not supported by the big exchanges and the big hardware wallet manufacturers. Yeah, you know. So that's something that we definitely need to work on improving.
Yeah, and and basically like Bitcoin is number one just because of its popularity.
It has like the first mover advantage, you know. Yeah. So eventually, it can only hold on to that so long if it can't compete.
Well, everything's obviously in the very early stages. I mean, I think all of these things will become more accessible and probably practical in the way that they function because, you know, it's people like the security that a bank offers them. Like you said, this crypto wallet gives you another layer of responsibility for your funds, for yourself. Yeah. So
in many ways, I think we can think of it like physical gold. You know, so if you have a gold coin in your hand, you know, it's your job not to lose it and not to drop it and misplace it somewhere. Yeah. You know, and I like having that ability of being able to have my own gold in my own pocket.
It's harder with crypto because it is digital.
Mm-hmm.
You can't take it out of your phone so easily,
Right.
and put it in your hand.
Yeah.
You know, if it's in your phone, it's in your phone, and I would be a little nervous if it was in my phone.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's possible that, you know, new innovations will change the way this works entirely. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, you know, you're trying to, with Goldcoin, innovate a whole new what's called a new consensus algorithm, which would be totally different from any other coin.
Back on your previous point, though, what I would say is you can put your Bitcoin, your cryptocurrency, on a flash drive. You can put it on a hardware wallet, and it's going to be not unlike physical gold. So if I have a gold coin that's worth $400 in my hand, and I have a hardware wallet that's worth $400 in my hand, it's the same. It's the same thing. I'm just trying to let people understand. There's nobody else but you. You have all.
Yeah.
You have $1 million in your hand.
That's what I like about the hardware wallet. They're not cheap. I mean, they're over $100 just for the thumb drive, right?
Yeah. And the thing that's very interesting and hard for people to get their head around is when I'm holding this flash drive or I'm holding this hardware wallet with $1 million on it, that $1 million doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. It doesn't exist anywhere. It's just right here in my hand. It's not my bank account number that will allow me to go access some account at a bank. I'm actually holding that money in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
And it exists nowhere else.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about some of the good characteristics and some of the bad characteristics. Mm-hmm. And basically, I think the bad characteristics are just like earmarks of a new technology, more or less. Some of them could be vastly improved upon in just a few years' time.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're looking forward to is like the adoption of cryptocurrencies on a bigger scale. And then, of course, the increase of value. Like
Mm-hmm.
anyone who has an investment is probably going to do good on that investment, be in the green 10 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
or even sooner. I mean, obviously sooner. It's been...
Well, Bitcoin could go down if we, I could see it going down if Bitcoin Cash starts to get some really good traction, because Bitcoin Cash is able to do what Bitcoin used to do. It has low fees, and it's scalable.
So
today, they're not waiting on some new Lightning technology. I mean, it's working. It's totally implemented today.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see Bitcoin Cash going up in value drastically, and Bitcoin actually losing value as that occurs, almost like a changing of the guard.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say a Bitcoin investment is safe. That's why it's so important to diversify.
Like you said, diversify into 20 different coins.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin Cash, and then Monero is another one that's popular, that's got promise because of its privacy feature, whereas Bitcoin is anonymous, but it's not totally private. Like that's maybe a common misconception, would you say?
Can you say that one more time?
That Bitcoin is it's not totally private or anonymous the way that people think it is.
Mm-hmm. Right, but I wanted to go back to the previous point. I just had one thing I wanted to say. Because you were saying diversify across a number of currencies, if I would equate it to like an S&P average or the Dow average.
Mm-hmm.
Invest in the top 20 cryptocurrencies, and 5 years from now, I think you're going to probably be in pretty good shape. But anyway, go ahead. Now you were bringing up the privacy thing.
Yeah. I don't want to get much into it. I just think that it is maybe a misconception that it's like totally private and anonymous. Like there is a level of anonymity to it,
Mm-hmm.
but if you're like conducting large scale illegal activities with Bitcoin, the NSA can find out who you are.
Right, and so there are projects out there like Monero and Zcash and others that have solved that problem and introduced privacy.
Now this could be an issue because of the abuse factor.
Well,
criminal activity abuse factor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess that's true. But at the same time, I mean, I think cash, the U.S. dollar is probably the number one cash money used by criminals and all sorts of mafia enterprises. I don't know, but I'm sure they're using a lot of cash.
It's an interesting topic. It kind of strays from tonight's topic,
Yeah.
the privacy thing, but
But there are options, and so
Yeah.
options are good. We want options, right? If you don't like privacy, then you can use Bitcoin. If you want to use privacy, you can use Monero or Zcash or some of the other privacy coins.
yeah.
So it's but we have a freedom of choosing.
I think privacy should be an option, at least for now, until until humanity achieves enlightenment.
If you want to be tracked by the NSA, right? If you want the NSA to know every single payment that you make on the blockchain, use Bitcoin. And if you want your transactions to be private, use a privacy coin.
Yeah. So, but using privacy coins doesn't necessarily mean you have something to hide. It shouldn't be looked at that way.
Right. It's just that, hey, I want to take a shower and get naked, and I don't want to be, observed while I'm doing it.
Yeah. The government will probably retain its rights to privacy, so I think we should too. And until they're willing to give it up, then fair is fair.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. And I think we'll do an episode on privacy very soon. That's our timer. So why don't we wrap this one up?
Sounds
Was there
good.
anything else you wanted to?
No, I think we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, me too.
It's a good show.
Okay.
I'm glad you could tune in.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. See you again soon. And there was one other thing, was to check out our Crypto Conscious Meetup group, which is going to be beginning here soon in Asheville at the Living Arts Foundation. So
link below.
Meetup.com, Crypto Conscious.
Like and subscribe. Hit the bell. And we'll see you next time.